Phoenix Suns Summer League is here, giving us our first look at two Suns who figure to maybe be part of this rotation. We'll break down Toumani Camara and Jordan Goodwin's debut in purple and orange and get back into the trade machine. What are the Suns going to use those new second-round picks for? All of it on today's episode of Locked On Suns.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we're back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Brendon Kleen, a credentialed media member covering the Suns for the past 6 seasons, a writer at Suns.com, and the host of the Just Basketball Show, wherever you get your podcast. Happy Monday. Welcome into a new week. More to talk about in the Suns universe, so hit follow or subscribe wherever you're finding this show. We're free and available on all podcast platforms, including YouTube. All you have to do is search Locked On Suns wherever you listen or watch your podcasts, and we will be here for you every single day throughout the offseason and beyond. We're here today to talk about Summer League. Maybe not the flashiest names on the Summer League roster for the Suns, but I had a blast watching this team. I think there's a lot to take away, and we'll dip back with some trades utilizing the 3 second-round picks that the Suns got last week. Are they up to something there? What might they be up to? We'll break that down to close the show. We're joined today, as we always are to start out the week, by Brendon Dueñas. He is a writer over at Bright Side of the Sun. Brendon, I'll let you start us off. What did you think of the number 52 overall pick, Toumani Camara, in his debut? 20 points, 8 rebounds, 31 minutes, sustained like a quad contusion, but kept playing. What were your initial takeaways on the rookie's first performance?
Well, I was impressed. I mean, just the versatility is really what stood out to me. And obviously you don't want to get too excited over one Summer League game. The context of the game is a lot different in terms of what their roles are going to look like in the Suns' actual rotation. That's kind of the way I like to look at Summer League in general, is do they fill the needs that the Suns actually currently have? And he kind of does. He checks a lot of those boxes in terms of just the energy, the motor that he's playing with. And like I said, the versatility defensively. Seems like a guy that can guard multiple positions. And he's someone I was not too familiar with, honestly, heading into the draft, and did some more digging on him after they acquired him. And, Jones, I think it looks like he's an NBA player, and that's what you want at the end of the day is if you're going to draft a guy, he has to look too good for Summer League, essentially, if they're going to be in the NBA. And, I thought that there's flashes where it looked like he kind of fit that mold. And even in that post-game press conference, and he said he felt like he wanted to prove he belonged, and I think he did for sure. So I came away pretty impressed, and I think there's a lot to like.
Yeah, the role aspect is a good place to start, I think, because he did play. I think he played some small ball 5 at times, and maybe obviously had more opportunities with the ball in his hands, even just in dribble handoffs or quick post ups, than he probably will. Probably be a little more spot up heavy in his NBA minutes if he ever sees the floor this season, which honestly, if health allows, he might not, and that's fine too. But it was a little different. But you also have, the listeners, I think too, maybe don't realize this is a dude who's been playing, international FIBA stuff for Belgium for a while. He came to the US and went to a pretty competitive high school and ended up at a Dayton program started at Georgia, which is a pretty high profile program, and then ended up at a Dayton program with, while it's a mid-major, that program has a reputation now since the past 5 or so years. Obi Toppin, I believe, an Antetokounmpo brother went there. They have become kind of a professional development type of school in a way that you don't necessarily think of mid-majors being. And so I think it's surprising because it's a number 52 overall pick, but I don't think this is a normal, 52nd type of guy, I guess is what I'll say. And the questions are still there regarding his jump shot and, his feel with the ball, if it ever gets to that point, or, his size physically to bang with, bigger forwards. There's obvious questions just watching the guy, but I agree with you. I think to be a relatively low draft pick against a Bucks team that is a pretty high level of competition, all things considered, for Summer League. I mean, Mannion, Beauchamp, Livingston, those guys are all former or current NBA players. Andre Jackson just won an NCAA title. Like, that's a pretty solid team for Summer League, and he looked at home. Like, he looked competitive, like you said. So I don't want to overdo it, but I'm like, I legit got like pretty excited seeing how solid this dude looked right away.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it in terms of like, there's a good chance he probably doesn't see the floor a ton outside of like garbage minutes, or if there's an injury, because like you look at the Suns depth chart and it's not easy to find minutes right now. So, but he's someone that I think if the situation presents itself, it helps a lot to have just a body you could throw out there to compete and do the little things. And I think just being that Energizer bunny, attacking the glass, trying to be a physical presence out there is kind of the vibe I got from him, at least. So I think if you have that off your, with your third string and, he's your 13th, 14th, 15th guy, then that's all you can ask for. And it's exciting to have a prospect for once too. So like,
yeah,
not only him, but, Goodwin also playing. It's nice to see guys. We saw obviously Wainwright last year, but just guys that'll be potentially in the rotation, or at least on the roster, in the Summer League. So it's good to have a couple of those guys for sure.
Yeah, and we definitely will talk about Goodwin. As far as Camara goes, it's like, maybe he's in the G League this year on another team's G League squad. Obviously, it would kind of have to be, or even if he's just on the bench and they're developing him in practice and he's kind of a white flag type of player. Players develop that way too. I think as much as I think it just was a dumb decision and kind of like a lost opportunity for the Suns to not have a G League team, plenty of guys, like Marjon Beauchamp is a great example. Like, he didn't play much last year, but all of a sudden now, okay, like pretty promising. And obviously he coming out of high school, he was a more developed prospect than probably Toumani Camara was, but like there's no one pathway to do it. And I think the thing that excites me the most, on top of just how he looked, which just to also like kind of go in depth a little bit about what I liked watching the dude, it seems like he's legit ambidextrous. Like, he's technically a lefty, but he had multiple finishes with his right hand. He looked completely comfortable finding the right player. There were tons of times where some of these guards who were just trying to make it in the NBA looked him off, and he didn't get, down on himself and whatever. He continued to play hard, continued to attack in the ways that he knows how. He's cutting, which is just like, what are you doing at Summer League, dude? Like, you don't have to do that, but he's out there doing it anyway. So I liked all of that, but physically, I just feel too like he fits what the Suns then went out and did in free agency. And I think that's one of the biggest differences we've seen too, this with how they've kind of assembled this stuff, is like Jalen Smith would go out there during Summer League and it was like, he's a 4-man, but then Jay Crowder's the Suns starting 4. Or it's like, okay, if Jalen Smith's the center, but then like DeAndre Ayton's their center. And it was just very clear that he didn't even seem to be on a pathway toward the style of basketball that the team wanted to play, where it's like now you look at Bates Diop, Chimezi Metu, any of these guys, you're like, I fully see how Camara will slide right into some of those roles that they need on this NBA team. Yeah,
for sure. And he doesn't need the ball to make an impact. That's the most important thing is you don't need to run plays for him. You don't need to, center your offense around him. He's just kind of a guy that he'll find a way to fit in. And like you said, all the versatility they have with their lineups, especially if they go out and add Bull, which is just another story that we can get into if that becomes official. But just some of the lineup versatility across the board is really exciting, especially with the size. That's one thing that I think this offseason they've done a great job of making sure that we're not going to be the smaller team most of the time, which I love, because I feel like the Suns are, just historically speaking, have always just been the smaller team that just sucks at rebounding, and it's infuriating. So having
forever,
some more size,
basically for the entire history of the team. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so adding some size and versatility is very exciting, especially with the youth and athleticism ingrained in that. I think that's just a great combination, and it's just like I said, I can't say enough good things about what they've done this offseason. We don't know if he's going to play or not, but I feel, like I said, I think if it came down to it, he looks like someone that could step in, break glass if there's an emergency type rotation guy, and you'll take that from the 52nd overall pick any day.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean that's exactly the right way to put it, right? Because he's at the end of the day, the expectation is he turns into nothing. Like, I don't mean that about him as a dude or as an athlete, but I just mean it as far as, yeah. Like draft pick wise, the number 52 overall pick is not supposed to ever even play in the NBA. Like, that's just what happens. So to even feel as solid coming off of one summer league game as we do, I think says something, right? And whether that turns into a long career or not, it's way, way, way too early to say that. It's even too early to, like we're saying, to know whether he even makes an impact this season. But the vision is there, I guess, is what we're both saying, I think. And it was is an exciting debut. We'll see how he looks as summer league continues. I would imagine he'll continue to play as long as the Suns are in this thing. We'll see. But let's talk next about a few of the other guys, starting with Jordan Goodwin. I have a question actually related to Bol here, Brandon. We'll get into that next. First, today's show brought to you by Ibotta. It's officially summer and a new season means new clothes, but your closet shouldn't be the only thing growing when you make these purchases. Now, you can also watch your cash back grow at the same time with each purchase using Ibotta. Ibotta gives you cash back on hundreds of grocery items from produce to personal care to pantry goods, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're buying. Either link your loyalty account or upload your receipt after you shop and get that cash back into your account. It's that easy. The average Ibotta user earns over $120 back per year. That's basically a bonus shopping trip if you think about it, or maybe a flight you've been eyeing. Maybe you're going to get to Summer League before it's over. That game you're dying to go to, or the fancy dinner you've been craving. Other apps give you points that don't really amount to much, whereas Ibotta gets you real cash back that you can cash out back into your bank account, your PayPal account, or even exchange into gift cards from places like Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying them by using the code LOCKED when you register at Ibotta. So just go to the App Store or Google Play Store, download the free Ibotta app, and use the code LOCKED. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store, and use the code LOCKED when you register. Okay, Brandon. So I don't know how much I'm joking when I ask you this, but who would you rather see on a two-way deal or on the Suns roster at the end of the bench next season, Bol or Trey Jemison?
Sign me up for Bol. Just
okay.
I'm on that train for sure. Just the lineup possibilities just are hilarious. And when you're talking about the end of the bench, just taking a swing at someone with that upside, I'm all for it.
Did you see this photo of Bol working out with Kevin Durant?
I did, yes. I saw that on Twitter. Very interesting.
So I was just, this is a side note, and we won't linger here too long. I'm a little skeptical on Bol, to be honest with you. I just think, this was the first year since high school where he played a real season, and he was pretty much a big fat negative on offense, even with some of the, highlight plays and some of the nights when his three went in and everything else. He had those 9 games at Oregon where he looked like a freak of nature, but really hasn't put it together on both ends since then. And he's not like young enough for him to pull the young card anymore. So like at the end of the bench, agreed, it doesn't matter that much. I always just wonder though, like how does the word get across? Like we heard this kind of with the rumor mill around Mike James from the EuroLeague, and obviously was a Sun once upon a time, that he's close with KD. Like, does KD just kind of text names to James Jones, or is there some sort of like Rich Kleiman meeting with Jones or Matt Ishbia early in the offseason and just kind of like sliding a piece of paper with some names written like quietly across the table like a mob like meetup would be? I have no idea how this stuff works, but all these guys just always end up on each other's teams, or the superstar gets who they want. Obviously Yuta, another example. What's your vision of how this actually goes down? Because I need to know.
I think there's definitely a collaboration behind the scenes, like there, especially for when you have someone like Kevin Durant, obviously players that he's comfortable playing with, like Utah. Everyone saw that coming. That was like the least shocking signing, just due to all the rumors. It felt like it was done before the offseason even started, honestly, which is kind of very different for Suns fans. We're not used to that. So I think taking that into consideration, like anytime Durant sends some names over to James Jones, I'm sure they're not going to automatically sign them just off that merit alone. Like I would hope not, but I think there's it's almost like, getting an employee referral, like when you're going out there looking for a job. So it's I think it gives you an inside track for sure. And agents probably use it as leverage for other negotiations as well. So as soon as Bull popped up in that photo with KD, I'm sure Bull's agent was texting anyone that would listen saying, the Suns are interested, like trying to drive that interest. So I think it goes both ways a little bit, but there's definitely something there that I think anytime someone like Kevin Durant says we should sign this guy, you should probably pay attention a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, and especially KD, I do think it's kind of another level. Like LeBron doesn't exactly have the best history, but KD tends to mostly speak up on dudes who kind of just play hard and have a high basketball IQ. Yep. Like he's not sort of doing the friend card necessarily. Mm-hmm. Although I will admit I was pretty glad that Mike James didn't end up here. I don't think he's an NBA player. I think we know that by now. I get if it's the 15th man and it makes KD happy. Ask the Nets how the DeAndre Jordan thing turned out. They kind of had to dump his salary. So that's not always smart, but, KD outside of the Jordan thing, I think he tends to get him right. So if he knows Bull and feels good about it, whatever, I'm all for it. I do feel like Terrence Ross was in that photo too, probably feeling a little bummed though that the card didn't get pulled for him. And he seems to be, lingering on the maybe he won't get a contract list at this point. But anyway, let's talk about Jordan Goodwin. He went out with left knee soreness, unsure what his kind of status will be the rest of Summer League, but I thought he looked really, really good too. And, just for the sake of game one Summer League overreactions, Brandon, I really did find myself kind of thinking like, does this team need campaign? Because I felt like the toughness and the confidence and just the good decision-making. I know the 3-ball is a question, but I watched him and felt like he could play backup minutes in the NBA.
Yeah, and we talked about this before, but I think like obviously the pain thing is something to mention, but I think even Okogie's job is a little bit questionable in terms of that's another guy you could take minutes from just because of that point of attack, that toughness. And he's a guy that went to St. Louis for 4 years. He's pretty much a seasoned vet, even though he's young. Like in NBA years, he's still going to enter his third season, I believe. So he's still technically pretty young in that sense. But I think just having a productive season for Washington, really kind of proving that he belonged in the league, just to get some more confidence in Summer League. And now being the leader, kind of like he was at St. Louis. Like I think he's built for it for sure. So I'm not really shocked that he looked like he belonged and then some. And I think he would look even better alongside guys like Booker and Beal and Durant, where he's not going to have to do too much initiating. It's more of like just bringing that physicality, toughness, and take care of the ball, and you're going to have a spot and hit open shots if you get them, which he should get plenty playing with those guys. Mm-hmm. So that's to me, there's definitely something there. And I think, like I said, I think both these guys are going to make the roster at this point, but it's just a matter of what their roles will be at the next level. I think Goodwin has a little bit of a clearer path than Camara at this point, just not only due to experience, but just in terms of team needs immediately. Yeah. So I think he has the quickest pathway to getting minutes. So definitely something to monitor there.
It was really just the poise for me, to be honest with you. Yeah. Like he got into the post and hit like a step back fadeaway jumper. He 0 turnovers. I mean, he only played 18 minutes, but honestly, in Summer League to play point guard and not turn the ball over is pretty impressive. Yeah. It's just a turnover factory. I mean, even Nico Mannion had a couple, and he's a guy who's much more highly regarded than Jordan Goodwin. I know a little older too, but I think that says something. And the only real moments that I felt like he looked uncomfortable is, to your point about role, doing stuff that I don't think he's really ever going to have to do on this team, which was when they went into a deep drop, especially when Taco Fall was out there and Goodwin had to he had like 2 or 3 floaters, and I think he missed all of them. But it's like, well, yeah, I mean, he's doing that in Summer League. He's not going to be running a pick and roll and, shooting 2 to 3 floaters every 18 minutes he's out there. That would be a very crazy turn of events if that became the Suns' offense. So when you think about it that way, it's like the only real kind of mess ups that I really noticed were things that he's not going to have to do. But otherwise, he looked confident and poised, and kind of just feels like an easy puzzle piece to put into place. Who else stood out to you? Anybody else you want to shout out or who kind of caught your attention here? I know I did really like Jemison. That was kind of a joke, but I actually feel like how hard he plays and how big he is and fluid he is. might be an NBA player in the next couple of years, but anyone else from your side?
Yeah, that was mine too. I think he was the one that some of draft Twitter too was like pretty high on in terms of like a guy that could be a sneaky summer league guy, undrafted type of free agent. So he's someone that I think, as we get deeper into summer league, like we'll see, he's someone that just to keep an eye on for sure. And then just another thing to add to Goodwin, just another reason I like that, like his fit in Phoenix so much is you look at who he's going to be playing with. It's going to pretty much be one of Booker, Beal, or Gordon at all times, like on the court with him. And that's why, or maybe two of them. So that's why I really love that fit. It's just so seamless in terms of like what he's going to be able to do both on and off ball. So I think he's the one I like. Obviously he has this knee problem. I don't know how they're going to play him or how cautious they'll be in terms of minutes or if he's even going to play again. But I think he's the one for me that I've been really looking at, and Jameson as well. So,
yeah, it just with Jemison, it's just, he's gobbling up offensive rebounds. He's running the floor really hard. He is a good athlete. He caught a few lobs. He can, like anybody his size, like, pick and roll defense and everything. There's obviously going to be some holes, but this is also his first experience ever playing, this type of competition, which is probably a step up from what he was facing at UAB, all things considered. So I would not be surprised. They worked him out pre-draft, even though he wasn't really a guy that was likely to get drafted, and then they put him on their summer league roster. So that feels like a sequence of events that leads me to think he is a candidate for a two-way, and it would make sense, just considering their roster to have another body on the roster for.
He feels like
minutes
such a Vogel guy too. Like such a Vogel guy. Like I know there's a quote just about Vogel saying he was impressed with his motor and rebounding and just the energy. So I think, if there is an injury or something like that, or for their depth chart, he's going to be someone that they probably have on speed dial training camp. And just if they need a body, he's there, like you said. So yeah, I totally agree.
All right. Time for trades. The Suns got 3 second-round picks last week, pretty decent ones. And I don't exactly think that they did that because they really like second-round prospects 5 years from now. So we'll talk about maybe what their plan is there and who they might be looking at as the offseason continues around the NBA. First, another quick break. Coming back. All right, Brandon. So I asked you to scour the league with your best front office hat on and come up with some possible targets using either, or I guess there's 3 potential possibilities here. The trade exception that the Suns still have for about $5 million, just shy of $5 million. There is Cameron Payne's salary for about $6 million. And obviously, people love to get very mad when I bring up the option of the Suns trading DeAndre Ayton, but that is still a possibility, whether you like it or not. And so that is the last one. I don't think DeAndre Ayton by himself versus DeAndre Ayton plus 3 second-round picks makes a big difference, but maybe you feel differently, Brandon. What is your kind of first idea around how we might see them utilize this new draft capital in a trade?
So I think the most important thing to look at is just what their roster looks like at that point in time as we get closer to the trade deadline. I think that's more than likely when it's going to be that they try to cash those in. I think it was a very creative way to acquire those picks as well. So tip of the cap to Jones on that. I think trying to replenish as many draft picks as possible, like you said, is not because they're all of a sudden draft guys after Camara. So I think you got to kind of look at what the landscape of the league was last year in terms of what happened at the deadline with the second round picks, and just tossing some names out there. Gary Payton, the trade to the Warriors. You had Plumlee to the Clippers, Mo Bamba to the Lakers, Josh Richardson to the Pelicans, Baisley to the Suns for Saric in 1 second, and then Bones Highland for 2 seconds to the Clippers. So there's and Thomas Bryant, Jay Crowder. There's a few other guys. So that's kind of the ballpark of the type of player you're going to get. It's going to be usually someone that's on an expiring. You're not going to be getting any home run swings with this by any means. So setting myself up for to ease into these candidates. So like someone like Royce O'Neal is one name that came to mind with Brooklyn. Monty Morris over in Detroit is another name that could be an interesting target. If they're looking for more versatility, Gary Harris, like I think the Magic in general are just a trade partner just waiting to happen with all those guards. So those are just a few. I have a couple more, but I'll let you kind of fire back if you have anything to add to that.
Well, so I hate this to be the thrower of cold water, but I do want to remind everybody as we talk about these trades that the Suns are in a pretty crappy position thanks to CJ McCollum. So it's going to be really hard to make trades, right? They have to bring back 100% or exactly or less than the player that they're sending out, and they can't aggregate salaries and trades. So the targets are very limited as far as who that's going to be. And so the places that I've been looking, to be honest with you, and like, we don't know what, they could do an 8 and trade, and then there's salary pieces that we don't know right now. So I'm not even saying that your ideas aren't right. And I do think the fact that I think we actually maybe disagree a little bit. I sort of felt like maybe that they would be doing this because they wanted to get a move on sooner, but you feel like it's more of a deadline thing. I guess to me, it was just sort of like, why do the Memphis weird pick swap second round Isaiah Todd thing now? I guess maybe the Isaiah Todd factor of like wanting to get him to a new situation sooner. And if Memphis wanted to actually get a look at him in summer league and whatnot, but the urgency of it made me feel like that the next move might be coming sooner. Does that feel reasonable, or was I just getting a little too excited for, more content?
I mean, you're pulling the whole Brian Windhorst. Why would they do that? And I love it. I'm here for it. Yeah. I think there's definitely a chance that they're trying to get that done for a reason. So I'm definitely not ruling that out. There could be a quick swap that they just want to have this ammunition so they can get done as quickly as possible. But at the same time, it could be something to keep in their back pocket because they know heading into the deadline, they don't really have anything. And like you said, it's going to be really complicated with the salary situation for them to figure out a way to add a useful piece. I think the campaign is the most likely attachment to those second round picks as far as if they're trying to flip, like it's probably not going to be a straight up just dump because I don't know, but there's a lot of targets that really are kind of out of that price range that makes sense if it's like a 3-way deal with Ayton involved or they try to get more creative. So it's really tough to gauge at this point, but it's definitely something that could happen here pretty soon.
Well, to your point, I think the trade exception lasts through the deadline. So that's not going away. And I think, as much as you and I are both excited about Jordan Goodwin, he is a young player and the 3-point shot is going to need to be proven, even though, corner threes, open threes, you can look at some of the numbers and get excited. It's pretty much half a season of real data, right? So like you probably don't want to pigeonhole yourself into relying on a young player like that to be a real piece for you. So having Payne, who is also inconsistent, but at least is another option, I don't think is a bad thing. So I totally get this allows you to do something in February, whereas before you would not have had there just wasn't anything that was going to be done unless somebody really just didn't want to pay a player and wanted to send them to your exception, or somehow Payne just developed a bunch of trade value, which is unlikely. So I hear you. And I think that's probably more likely. The place that I look to finish my own sentence from a minute ago is young guys on expensive teams who their team doesn't want to pay them. And there's a lot of guys that kind of fit into that category. And maybe some of your options do. The other one that would be kind of on a completely opposite side of the equation would be Otto Porter Jr. Is he just going to be healthy every other year? Can you get him on the healthy year? Like that might be something where we know the Raptors are point guard needy, even after signing Dennis Schroeder. Maybe Payne and even just one of these seconds, to be honest, for Otto Porter, who's making $6.3 million on a player option that they probably regret giving him. They give a lot of guys player options that they regret over there in Toronto. Maybe there's a way to do that. But again, he didn't play all last year, and he's been mostly not healthy his whole career outside of just Golden State getting lucky and they get an amazing year from him and win a championship. So I don't know. But that one, I mean, he would be an awesome fit here.
Yeah, no, I like that. Another name, and this name has been around for so long, just Kenrich Williams with OKC. Can we finally get that to happen? That was one where salary-wise it fits as well. So I think
the return of campaign to Oklahoma City. There you go.
Yep, reunite him and Westbrook there.
Hopefully not Westbrook for their sake, but
Denny is another guy that would be interesting, but again, why would the Wizards do that for 3 seconds? I mean, maybe.
But I mean, he's kind of like Rui was, right? Where he's about to get paid, and if it just doesn't feel like a fit for them, or they just don't think he's worth it. I do think he's a guy who's better on a good team. So maybe they just sort of think, hey, if a good team wants to give us some assets and we don't want to be the one to give them a new contract, and we get something back. Like, I don't know if 3 seconds is good enough, but I could see that one.
There's a lot of young guys that kind of fit that same problem in terms of, I don't think 3 seconds are going to do it, but like maybe they had Camara and he's something at that point. I don't know. But like Cole Anthony is another one, just looking at the Orlando situation. Chuma Okeke is another guy. There's a lot of guys that kind of fit that range where they're young, they're not making a ton of money, but again, is 3 seconds really going to move the needle for them to make a trade? I don't know, but we've seen players go for less than you'd expect like every season. So there's a chance the Suns could find the right fit that just makes sense with timing and everything. That's why I think being patient could pay off, unless they have something up their sleeve that they're just kind of waiting on and trying to get done before then.
No, I think you're selling me on the patience part of this too, because I think, as much as we sort of think it's a guard that they probably would want there, I'm not convinced of that. It's just sort of like the least stable position, or the place where they have the least kind of veteran bodies, but that could change, and waiting longer, even if it's not literally the day of the deadline, December 15th guys become available, January 15th guys become available. And then from there, it's sort of just the sprint to the actual deadline about a month after that. So it would also allow the Suns to be able to play games and see whether it's injuries or just, hey, we kind of need a little bit more of this thing on our roster. Then they have the ability to do that. I do think an Ayton trade will continue to be revisited unless he just blows everything out of the water. Like, that will be on the radar by February, even if people want to be mad about it. Like, I feel like there's some people who think that the media makes up things about DeAndre Ayton to try to stir drama up. First of all, I'm like the 5th most impactful anything. Like, if that, like, maybe I'm closer to 10th. I'm not affecting anything, guys. And we know the team is actually having negotiations. Like, Mark Stein reported about a concrete offer from Dallas to Phoenix. If you don't think that's enough to convince yourself, just stop reading any information then. But that's true. So I think the Ayton part would allow them to, if they do a trade there, then maybe something supplemental to that happens where they want to backfill, or, they don't want to rely on Bol to start games for them potentially. So I think you're selling me on the patience aspect of it. But I mean, Emmanuel Quickly has been thrown out there, probably not getting him for that. Peyton Pritchard has been thrown out there. Maybe you could get him, but I don't know what they'll need. So I think you're probably right.
All right, I got another one for you, just for nostalgia. How about bringing Ricky Rubio back?
I just hope Ricky Rubio can play basketball at a high level.
That is a very fair question, but it's sometimes you got to get the buy lows and but yeah, that's another one that fits in the salary. You're probably not going to have to give up 3 seconds for him. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Hawks, some of their young guys, they're a team that's been dumping salary. Maybe they're finally done doing that, but, there's some of that there. Amir Coffey, Bones Highland from the Clippers are a couple of options there, young guys who they might not want to pay. Maybe Bones and Coffey aren't exactly things the Suns need, but yeah, that's the place people should be looking. Those types of players, whether it's now or closer to February, they have the ability to make some type of deal to upgrade the team in a way that they just literally had nothing left before. So I think listen to my deeper breakdown of how that all kind of played out from Friday, but otherwise, there's some players for you guys. All right, more summer league to come, more off-season moves around the NBA, maybe the Bol signing. So hit follow or subscribe wherever you are finding this show to get it in your feed every single Monday through Friday throughout the rest of the off-season and beyond. You can also read Brandon over at Bright Side of the Sun. They do awesome work giving you written stuff day to day to keep up with the team as well. and I will talk to you guys tomorrow.